The stars had always been quiet. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They sent signals into the darkness. They listened for answers. They dreamed of meeting other beings from distant worlds. When the answer finally came, it was not what anyone had hoped for. The Galactic Dominion arrived on a Tuesday morning. Their ships blocked out the sun over 12 major cities at the same time. Each vessel was larger than a mountain. Their hulls were black as death and covered with strange symbols that seemed to move when people looked at them too long. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Tide. He was a species that had conquered 17 star systems in the last 100 years. They had never lost a battle. They had never shown mercy. They took what they wanted because no one could stop them. Was tall, almost 3 meters from his feet to the top of his head. His body was covered in living armor made from crystals found only in the hearts of dead stars. This armor could take the blast of a nuclear bomb without a scratch. It made him nearly impossible to kill. He had 3 eyes, all burning with orange fire. His hands were large enough to crush a human skull like an egg. When he walked, the metal floor bent under his weight. "Report," he said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "The planet has 7 billion inhabitants," said his second officer. "They call themselves humans. Their technology is primitive. They have nuclear weapons but nothing that can harm our ships. Estimated conquest time is 4 days." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. 4 days was generous. Most worlds fell in hours once they saw the Dominion fleet. "Send the usual message," he ordered. "Surrender or die. Give them 1 hour to respond." The message went out across all of Earth's communication systems. Every phone, every television, every computer showed the same thing. His terrible face, his burning eyes, his promise of destruction. "You have 1 hour," he said in the message. "Surrender your world. Give us your resources. Become servants of the Dominion. If you refuse, we will burn your cities, poison your waters, and sell your children to the slave markets of the Outer Rim. You cannot fight us. You cannot hide from us. You can only obey." The message ended. The hour began. In the underground bunker beneath the city of Seoul, Director watched the message with calm eyes. She was a small woman, 53 years old, with gray hair cut short and practical. She had worked for Earth's secret defense program for 20 years. "Is everything ready?" she asked. Doctor checked his instruments. "The field generators are online. The orbital platforms are in position. Lieutenant Park is standing by." Nodded slowly. "Then we proceed as planned." 20 years ago, a strange object had crashed into the Pacific Ocean. It was not a meteor. It was not space debris. It was a message from a dead civilization, a species that had destroyed thousands of years ago. The message was simple. It said, "They are coming. We could not stop them. Perhaps you can. Here is what we learned." What they learned changed everything. At minute 45 of the hour, a small human shuttle left Earth's surface. It flew directly toward the Crushing Tide. The watched it approach with amusement. "One small ship," laughed a guard. "Are they sending a gift?" The shuttle docked with the flagship without permission. They let it happen because they were curious, also because they were bored. Conquest was easy when you were the strongest thing in the galaxy. The airlock opened. Lieutenant Park stepped out. She was 28 years old, born in, trained in the Earth Defense Force since she was 18. She stood about 165 centimeters tall. She weighed 52 kilograms. She wore simple military clothes with no armor. She carried no weapons that anyone could see. The guards, each one twice her size and covered in crystal armor, looked at each other. Then they laughed. The sound was horrible, like stones being crushed in a machine. "A female," one said. "They sent a small female to face Commander." Did not react to their laughter. She walked forward with steady steps. Her heartbeat was calm, her hands did not shake. "Take me to your commander," she said. "I am here to negotiate." The guards laughed harder, but they led her to the bridge. They wanted to see this. They wanted to watch him destroy this tiny creature who thought she could speak to the conqueror of worlds. The bridge of the Crushing Tide was enormous. Hundreds of worked at strange machines. Screens showed images of Earth cities, marking targets for destruction. In the center of it all sat on his command throne, a chair made from the bones of enemies he had killed personally. He looked down at, his 3 eyes burned brighter. "What is this?" he asked. "A human, Commander," said the guard captain. "She says she wants to negotiate." Leaned forward, the throne creaked under his weight. Negotiate, he repeated. Your hour is not finished, you surrender already. Shook her head. No, I am here to give you a chance to leave. The bridge fell completely silent. Every stopped what they were doing. They stared at the small human woman who had just told their commander to run away. Then laughed. It was the loudest sound had ever heard, like thunder inside a cave. Leave, he said. You tell me to leave, little creature, do you know who I am? I have crushed worlds, I have burned civilizations, I have killed millions with my own hands. He stood up from his throne. The floor cracked under his feet. He walked toward each step, making the whole bridge shake. I am commander, I am the fist of the Dominion, I am death itself. He stopped in front of her. He was so tall she had to look almost straight up to see his face. His shadow covered her completely. And you, he said, are nothing. He raised his massive armored fist. It was larger than its entire head. It could punch through steel walls. It could shatter mountains. He swung it down toward her skull, raised her open palm, and everything changed. His fist moved faster than any human eye could follow. He had killed thousands of enemies with this same attack. His crystal armor added weight and power to every blow. Scientists had measured his punch at forces that could crack open military bunkers. But his fist never reached its face. It stopped in the air about 10 centimeters from her raised palm. She was not touching him. Her hand was just there, open and relaxed, like she was waving hello to a friend. And then the sound came. It was a scream, but not from any living thing. It came from his armor. The crystal that had been forged in the heart of dying stars, the armor that had never been damaged in 1,000 battles, began to crack. Lines appeared on his gauntlet like a window hit by a stone. They spread up his arm, splitting and branching. The orange glow that lived in the crystal flickered and dimmed. His arm shook, his whole body shook. He tried to push forward to complete the blow, but he could not move. What? His voice was different now. The confidence was gone. What is this? Did not answer immediately. She kept her palm raised, her eyes locked on his. There was no anger in her face, no fear, just calm concentration like a person solving a difficult math problem. On the shuttle still docked with the flagship, Sergeant watched through hidden cameras. His hands gripped the console so hard his fingers hurt. Beside him, Corporal Han had stopped breathing. She's doing it, whispered. It's actually working. His armor said, look at his armor, it's breaking. They had trained for this moment for years. They had run simulations and done tests. But seeing it happen, watching the most feared warrior in the galaxy shake before a woman half his size, was something else entirely. On the bridge, the guards raised their weapons. They pointed them at, ready to fire. Don't, said. His voice was strained. Pain showed in his burning eyes. Something is wrong, don't shoot. The guards hesitated. They had never heard fear in their commander's voice before. Finally spoke. Tell them to lower their weapons. If they fire, the same thing will happen to them. Their armor will break. Their bodies will break. They cannot hurt me without hurting themselves more. Lies, hissed one guard. He fired his weapon. The energy blast, powerful enough to melt through steel, flew towards back. She did not move. She did not even look. The blast hit something invisible in the air behind her. It bent, it curved, and it flew back toward the guard who had fired it. The guard's armor screamed the same Wace had. Cracks covered his chest plate. He fell to his knees, gasping, smoke rising from the damaged crystal. I told you, said simply. Finally stepped back. He pulled his arm away from her palm and looked at the damage. His gauntlet was ruined. Deep cracks ran from his fingers to his elbow. He could feel pain in places where he had never felt pain before. How? He demanded. Our armor is made from neutron star cores. Nothing can damage it. Nothing in the galaxy is strong enough. You damaged it yourself, said. Your own strength turned back on you. That is what I am doing. I am not fighting your power. I am reflecting it. She lowered her hand and took a step toward him. Took a step back. The greatest warrior of the backing away from a creature he could hold in one hand. Humanity found something 300 years ago, continued. A gift from a species you destroyed long ago. They could not save themselves, but they left us knowledge. They taught us that force is not the only answer, that the strongest weapon is not the one that hits hardest, but the one that makes your enemy hit himself. Back on Earth in the bunker beneath Sol, Director allowed herself a small smile. The data coming from implants showed everything working perfectly. heart rate stable, field generators at full power. The reflection technology was performing exactly as designed. Her stress levels are incredibly low, said, looking at his screens with amazement. She's standing in front of a monster that could crush her like a bug, and her body is calmer than mine is right now. That's why we chose her, replied. The reflection field responds to the user's mental state. Fear makes it weak, doubt makes it unstable, but calmness, true calmness, makes it perfect. Had been the best candidate they had ever found. Thousands of people had been tested. Most could not control their fear well enough. Some could manage the field for a few seconds before their emotions broke it, but was different. She had been calm since childhood, not cold, not emotionless, but centered in a way that was rare. When other children panicked during emergencies, she helped. When others cried during danger, she acted. Her psychology reports said she had an unusual relationship with fear. She felt it, but it did not control her. That made her humanity's best weapon. On the bridge of the crushing tide, the situation had changed completely. Guards had lowered their weapons. They looked at their commander, waiting for orders, but seemed lost. "This is impossible," he said. "We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. We have defeated enemies with weapons that could destroy stars. How can you do this?" "Because you never learned to look for a different path," said. "You always won by being stronger. You never met someone who made strength into weakness, until now." She walked closer to him. He did not retreat this time, but his body was tense. His damaged arm hung at his side. "I am not here to kill you," she said. "I am here to show you what humans can do, so you understand that fighting us is pointless. Every attack you make will hurt you more than it hurts us. Every bomb you drop will fall back on your own ships. Every soldier you send will defeat himself." She stopped directly in front of him and looked up at his burning eyes. "Leave our world. Tell the Dominion that Earth is not worth the cost. This is not a request. It is advice from one living being to another." Stared down at her for a long moment. The cracks in his armor caught the light. Pain throbbed through his arm. Then his 3 eyes narrowed. "You think one trick will save your world?" he growled. "You think breaking my armor will make the Dominion fear you? We have 1,000 ships. We have weapons that can crack planets in half. One human with a strange power changes nothing." Nodded slowly. "I thought you might say that." She turned and walked back toward the airlock. The guards watched her go but did not try to stop her. At the door, she looked back over her shoulder. "Then I suppose you'll need a bigger demonstration," she said. "Order your fleet to fire on the ship. Fire everything they have." Sighs widened. "That would kill you." Smiled. It was a small smile, sad and tired. "Try me," she said. And she walked out the door, the shuttle carrying, and left the crushing tide and flew back toward Earth. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Kept checking the sensors, watching for weapons lock. Sat in the corner, her hands shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. Only seemed calm. She sat in her seat with her eyes closed, breathing slowly and deeply. The implants beneath her skin hummed quietly, cooling down after their intense use. "Do you think he'll actually do it?" asked. "Fire on his own ship?" "Yes," said without opening her eyes. "His pride is wounded. He needs to prove that he's still strong, still in control. He'll give the order." Shook his head. "Then we need to move faster if they catch us in open space when those cannons fire." "We'll be fine," said. "Trust the plan." 300 years of planning, 300 years of preparation. It had all started with the beacon. In 2147, a fishing boat off the coast of Japan detected something strange on their sonar. Something huge resting on the ocean floor. The government sent divers. What they found changed human history forever. The beacon was not a natural object. It was a machine, clearly built by intelligent hands, but hands very different from human ones. It was covered in symbols no one could read and made from materials no one could identify. For 50 years, scientists studied it without success. They could not open it. They could not damage it. They could not even understand what it was made of. Then one day it opened itself. Inside was a message. The beacon played it directly into the minds of everyone within a kilometer. It spoke in feelings and images rather than words, so that any intelligent species could understand. The message came from a people called they had been a peaceful species, artists and philosophers who lived on a beautiful world covered in forests. When they came, they had no weapons. They tried to negotiate. They tried to hide. In the end, they tried to fight with whatever they could find. Nothing worked. They destroyed them completely. But before the end, the greatest scientists created the beacon and launched it into space, hoping it would reach anyone, who might face the same enemy someday. The beacon contained knowledge. Specifically, it contained the mathematics of reflection. The universe they had discovered was built on a simple principle. Energy and force always seek balance. Push something and it pushes back. Heat something and it tries to cool. Every action creates a reaction. They had learned to use this principle as a weapon. They called it the mirror. The mirror did not block attacks. It did not absorb them. Instead, it caught incoming force and sent it back by the target's own power. The stronger the attack, the stronger the reflection. They had discovered this too late to save themselves, but they left the knowledge for others. Humanity spent the next 250 years learning to use it. In the bunker beneath Seoul, Director watched the screens with sharp attention. Data flowed in from satellites, from hidden sensors, from sources they did not even know existed. "The shuttle is clear of the flagship," reported an officer. "They're entering Earth's defense perimeter now." "Is gathering his officers," another reported. "His communications are increasing. He's planning something." Nodded. "He's going to order the attack. Prepare the mirror." Doctor stood beside her, his tablet clutched in his hands. "Are we sure about this? If the calculations are wrong, even slightly wrong." "The calculations are not wrong," said firmly. "We have tested this 1,000 times. The mirror works. Today, the galaxy learns what humans are capable of." The mirror was not just personal ability. Her implants were powerful, yes, but they could only protect one person. The true weapon was much larger. For the past 50 years, Earth had been launching satellites. The intelligence had noted them but dismissed them as primitive communication devices. They looked like space junk, random debris floating in orbit. They were not random. Every single one was a node in a network. Together, they formed a reflection field large enough to cover the entire planet. They were about to attack Earth with their most powerful weapons. And every blast, every bomb, every beam of destructive energy would bounce back at them. On the bridge of the crushing tide stood before his officers. His damaged arm was wrapped in emergency repair gel, but the cracks in his armor were still visible. His soldiers tried not to stare. "The human claims she can reflect our attacks," said. "She claims our weapons will destroy us instead of them. This is obviously a lie." "Obviously," echoed his officers, though some of them did not sound certain. "One small creature with a strange device cannot stop the Dominion fleet," continued. "She is trying to scare us, to make us leave without a fight. This is a common tactic of weak species." He turned to his weapons officer. "Order all ships to fire on the crushing tide. Maximum power. Prove that this human is nothing but a liar." The weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, we are on the crushing tide if the fleet fires on us." "Our shields will hold," snapped. "The flagship is the most protected vessel in the Armada. I want those ships to fire, I want the humans to see their pathetic reflection trick fail, and then I want every city on that planet burned to ash." The order went out. 17 warships turned their weapons toward the crushing tide. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Together, they could crack a planet. On Earth, in bunkers and shelters around the world, humans watched and waited. Many prayed, some cried. Children held their parents' hands and asked what was happening. In Seoul spoke quietly into her communicator. "Admiral Ryu, the moment has come, activate the mirror." Far on the dark side of Earth's moon, where no sensor had thought to look, Admiral Ryu sat in her command chair. Around her, 100 officers worked at stations built from both human technology and secrets learned from the beacon. "Mirror activation confirmed," said. "The net is ready." She looked at the main screen, which showed the fleet preparing to fire. "Let them come," she whispered. "Let them see what humanity has become." The ships fired. 17 streams of pure destruction lanced through space toward the crushing tide. Each one was bright enough to blind unprotected eyes. Each one carried enough energy to level a continent. They crossed the distance in seconds. And then they hit the mirror. The reflection field caught every beam. It bent them, twisted them, their force, and sent them back. Not toward the crushing tide, which had shielded against his own fleet's weapons. Toward the fleet itself. The had fired at one ship. 17 ships received the answer. Explosions bloomed in the darkness of space. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds tore themselves apart. Crystal hulls that had survived centuries of warfare cracked and shattered. In 30 seconds, 11 dreadnoughts were destroyed. The other 6 were damaged so badly they could barely hold together. On the bridge of the crushing tide, watched his fleet die. "Impossible," he whispered, "impossible." But the burning wreckage floating past his window told a different story. A communications signal reached his console. He opened it without thinking. His face appeared on the screen. She was back on Earth now, standing in a room full of humans watching him with calm, determined eyes. "Do you believe me now?" she asked. Could not speak. "We don't want to destroy you," continued. "We never wanted war, but understand this, Commander, you cannot hurt us without hurting yourselves. That is not a threat. It is not a trick. It is simply how the universe works, and we have learned to work with it." She leaned closer to the camera. "Leave, take your surviving ships, and go. Tell the Dominion that Earth is not worth the cost. Do this, and no more of your people need to die." Stared at the screen, at the small human woman who had broken his armor, shattered his fleet, and destroyed everything he believed about power. "This is not over," he said finally. "It can be," replied. "That choice is yours." The transmission ended. Looked at the wreckage of his fleet, at the damage to his own body, at the faces of his officers who no longer looked at him with respect. And for the first time in his long life, he did not know what to do. The crushing tide hung in orbit above Earth for 3 days. Its remaining escort ships limped around it like wounded animals. The crews worked to repair what they could, but the damage was too great. They could not fight. They could barely fly. Inside the flagship, Commander had locked himself in his quarters. He refused to speak to anyone. He refused to eat. He sat in the darkness and stared at the cracks in his armor, which the ship's medical systems could not fully repair. The crystal was alive in a way. It bonded with its wearer. When it cracked, the wearer felt the pain, and felt pain constantly now, throbbing through his arm and chest like a second heartbeat. But the physical pain was nothing compared to what he felt inside. He had been undefeated for 200 years. He had led the Dominion's conquest fleet since before most of his current crew were born. He had personally killed hundreds of enemies, from warriors twice his size to creatures made of pure energy. And he had been stopped by a human woman who weighed less than his arm. On the 3rd day, a message came from the High Council of the Dominion, was ordered to report. He was ordered to explain. He was ordered to tell them how the greatest fleet in the galaxy had been destroyed by a species the Council had classified as minimal threat. Finally left his quarters. He walked to the communication room and opened a channel to the Council far across the galaxy. 17 faces appeared on the screen, representatives from 17 species that ruled the Dominion. They were the strongest, but they were not the only power. The Council made decisions together, though everyone knew that voices carried the most weight. Or they had until now. "Commander," said the Council speaker, with scales that shifted color with her mood. Right now they were dark purple, the color of anger. "Explain yourself." Stood straight, trying to ignore the pain in his arm. "The humans possessed technology we did not anticipate, a reflection field that turns our weapons against us. They destroyed 11 of my ships using our own firepower." "Reflection," the scales flickered. "That is theoretical physics. No species has ever made it work on such a scale." "The humans have," said flatly. The Council members looked at each other. Some seemed skeptical, others seemed worried. The representative, a being made of living metal, leaned forward. "If what you say is true," it said, "then the humans are far more dangerous than we believed. We should send the Grand Fleet, destroy them from a distance they cannot reflect." Shook his head. "I considered that, but their reflection field covered the entire attack zone. If we fire from farther away, they will simply expand the field. The technology scales with the threat." "Then we use biological weapons," suggested another Council member. "Diseases, poisons, things that cannot be reflected." "They will adapt," said. "They have had 300 years to prepare. Do you think they only developed one defense?" The Council fell silent. This was something they were not used to. The Dominion solved problems with force. When force failed, they used more force. The idea of an enemy that became stronger the harder you hit them was difficult to understand. Finally, the spoke again. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Was quiet for a long moment. The words he needed to say tasted bitter in his mouth. "Retreat," he said. "Leave their system, do not attack them again." The council erupted. Voices overlapped, arguing, protesting. The Dominion did not retreat. The Dominion did not accept defeat. The Dominion conquered or destroyed, those were the only options. "Silence," the commanded. The other voices faded. "Commander, explain your reasoning." "The humans do not want war," said. "They made that clear. They want to be left alone. If we give them that, they will not pursue us. They will not seek revenge." He paused, forcing himself to continue. "If we keep attacking, we will keep losing. Every ship we send will be destroyed by its own weapons. Every soldier will be defeated by his own strength. The humans have found a way to make our power worthless. Fighting them is not courage, it is stupidity." The council was quiet. No one wanted to agree with him. No one wanted to be the first to say that the Dominion should run from a fight. But no one wanted to lose more ships either. "We will discuss this," they said finally. "You will remain in your current position until we reach a decision. Do not engage the humans further." The communication ended. On Earth, that same conversation was being monitored. The hidden sensors that humans had placed throughout the solar system picked up the transmission and decoded it. In the bunker beneath Sol, Director listened to every word. "They're scared," she said quietly. "Good." But Doctor looked worried. Some of them wanted to use biological weapons, if they decide to try that. "They won't," said. "Not yet. They need to understand us better first. They'll send diplomats before they send diseases." She turned to the communication officer. "Prepare a message to the flagship. I think it's time we invited ourselves to a meeting." 2 hours later, a human shuttle approached the crushing tide for the second time. This time, it carried not just, but also a full diplomatic team. Representative led the group. He was a tall man in his 50s, with a kind face and clever eyes. He had spent his career negotiating peace between nations on Earth. Now he would try to negotiate peace between species. With him came Sergeant and 3 other guards. Also present was Doctor, an expert in alien biology, and Professor, a historian who specialized in Dominion culture. They were met at the airlock by himself. The commander looked terrible. His armor was cracked, his eyes were dim, he moved like a creature in pain. But he was still dangerous, everyone knew that. "You come to gloat?" he asked. "No," said calmly. "We come to talk about the future, about peace." Made a harsh sound. "Peace. There is no peace with the Dominion, there is only conquest or resistance." "Maybe that was true before," said. "But things have changed, you know this, we know this. Now we must decide what happens next." Stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he turned and walked into the ship. "Follow me," he said. The meeting took place in a conference room designed for, which meant the chairs were too big for humans and the table was too high. The humans did not complain. They stood, or sat on elevated platforms brought from the shuttle. Sat at the head of the table. His officers flanked him, watching the humans with a mixture of hatred and fear. "Say what you came to say," ordered. Nodded politely. "Humanity does not want war with the Dominion. We never did. We developed our defenses because we knew you would come, and we knew you would not negotiate with a weak species. Now we have shown you our strength. We hope this means we can speak as equals." "Equals," one of his officers laughed. "You are insects. One trick does not make you our equals." "That trick destroyed 11 of your ships," said quietly. "Do you want to see what other tricks we have?" The officer fell silent. Continued. "We propose a simple agreement. You leave our solar system. You do not return with hostile intent. In exchange, we share our reflection technology with the Dominion." His eyes widened. "You would give us your greatest weapon." "Yes," said, "because it will change everything." He leaned forward. "Think about it, Commander. If every species in the galaxy has reflection technology, then attacking anyone becomes pointless. War itself becomes obsolete. The strong cannot crush the weak because the weak will crush them back." Was quiet, he understood what was saying. If reflection spread throughout the galaxy, the Dominion's entire way of life would end. Conquest would be impossible, force would be meaningless. "You want to destroy us," said slowly. "Not with weapons, but with ideas." We want to change you, corrected. Change the whole galaxy, make a universe where power comes from cooperation, not conquest. Is that really worse than what you have now? Looked at the cracks in his armor, at the emptiness where his fleet used to be, at the small human beings who had beaten him without throwing a single punch. I will take your proposal to the council, he said finally. I do not promise they will accept. That's all we ask, said. The meeting ended. The humans returned to their shuttle and flew back to Earth. Behind them sat alone in the conference room, thinking about a future he could barely imagine. A future where strength meant nothing. A future where they might have to learn to be something other than conquerors. It terrified him, but deep in his wounded heart, a small part of him wondered if it might also be better. 3 months passed. In that time, the galaxy changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The Dominion High Council debated for weeks. Some demanded war. Some demanded retreat. Some demanded weapons that could bypass the reflection technology, though no one could explain how such weapons would work. In the end, they chose negotiation, not because they wanted peace, but because they had no other option. The humans had proven they could not be conquered by force. The only remaining path was diplomacy. Representative traveled to the Dominion with a small delegation. The journey took 6 weeks, passing through systems they had conquered long ago. Everywhere they went, humans were watched with a mixture of fear and wonder. News had spread. Everyone knew about the species that had broken commander. The council chamber was massive, built to intimidate visitors. 17 seats rose in a circle around a central platform where petitioners stood to address their rulers. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Stood on that platform with beside him. Around them, the council representatives watched with ancient, calculating eyes. You ask for partnership, the speaker said. Trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense, these are concepts the Dominion does not typically consider. I understand, replied. Your history has been built on conquest, taking what you need by force, but that model no longer works against us and soon it will not work against anyone. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's plans. We intend to share reflection technology freely. Any species that wants it can have it. Within a generation, the entire galaxy will be able to defend itself the way Earth defends itself. Murmurs rippled through the council. The representative spoke, its metallic voice echoing. You would arm our subjects against us, give them the power to resist. Yes, said simply, that is exactly what we will do. Why, demanded a counselor. Why give away your advantage? You could use this technology to conquer us, to build your own empire. Answered before could speak. Because we don't want an empire, we never did. We just want to live in peace. And peace is only possible when no one is strong enough to take what they want without consequences. She looked around the chamber at the faces of species that had ruled through violence for. The Dominion exists because you are stronger than everyone else. But strength is not leadership. Strength is not wisdom. Strength is just the ability to hurt things. We want to build something better. A galaxy where species work together because cooperation benefits everyone, not because they're afraid of being destroyed. The council was silent for a long moment. Then the speaker leaned forward. And if we refuse, if we reject your partnership and continue our old ways? Then nothing changes for you, said. You go home, you keep your systems, we don't chase you or punish you. But the galaxy will change around you. Other species will gain protection. Your conquests will become harder and harder until they become impossible. Eventually, you will have to choose between adapting and dying alone. He spread his hands. We're offering you a chance to be part of something new, to find meaning beyond conquest, to use your strength for building instead of destroying. That's not a threat, it's an invitation. The vote took 3 days. Every species had to agree. Every counselor had to accept that the old way was ending. For some, this was impossible. The representative argued for hours, insisting that partnership was weakness, that the Dominion should fight until the last ship was destroyed. But even the could count. They had seen what happened to fleet. They knew that fighting the humans meant dying by their own weapons. Pride was important, but survival was more important. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Dominion accepted partnership with Earth. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Species that had lived under Dominion rule for centuries suddenly had hope. Messengers carrying reflection technology left Earth every day, bringing freedom to worlds that had never known it. Not everyone adapted well. Some former rulers could not accept their loss of power. Small wars broke out on dozens of planets as old masters tried to maintain control. But with reflection technology spreading, these conflicts were short. Oppressors found their weapons turned against them. Dictators fell. New governments rose. It was not easy, it was not quick, it was not without pain. But it was better than what came before. 5 years after the first confrontation, the Galactic Alliance was formally established. Earth served as neutral ground, a place where any species could come to negotiate without fear. The old Dominion structures were reformed into cooperative councils where every voice mattered, not just the strongest. Retired from the Defense Force at 33, she had become famous throughout the galaxy as the woman who broke, but she did not want fame. She wanted quiet. She moved to a small house by the sea and spent her days painting and reading. Sometimes she gave talks to young cadets at the Defense Academy. She told them about the beacon, about the who had died to give humanity a chance, about the importance of finding alternatives to violence. We won, she would tell them, not because we were stronger. We won because we found a different way to be strong. The universe rewards creativity. It rewards those who look for new paths instead of following old ones. Never forget that. Commander lived. His arm never fully healed, and he was stripped of his rank after the defeat at Earth. For years, he served as an advisor to the new alliance, helping former Dominion species adjust to a galaxy where they could not simply take what they wanted. He was not happy about it, but slowly, over time, he began to understand what the humans had been trying to tell him. One day, a young approached him at an alliance gathering. The young warrior was barely 50 years old, born after the change. "Commander," the young one said respectfully, "what are humans really like? The stories say they are weak and small, but they defeated you." Looked at his arm, where the cracks had faded to thin white lines. "They are small," he admitted. "Soft, they cannot survive in vacuum or crush stone with their hands. They live short lives and break easily." "Then how did they win?" Was quiet for a moment, remembering a small woman with a raised palm and eyes that held no fear. "Because they understood something we never did," he said finally. "They learned that the universe does not reward the one who hits hardest. It rewards the one who turns that hit into something else. They made our power into their weapon. They made our strength into our weakness." He looked at the young with serious eyes. "Never fight something that becomes stronger the harder you hit it. That is what humans are. That is why they won. And that is why, perhaps, they deserve to win." The young warrior nodded slowly, trying to understand. Across the galaxy, humanity continued to grow, not as conquerors but as builders. They established trade routes and cultural exchanges. They shared technology and art. They welcomed visitors and learned from every species they met. They remembered the whose sacrifice had made everything possible. A memorial was built on Earth, on the shore where the beacon had been found. It said simply, "They fell so that others might stand. We stand because they showed us how." And in the stars above, where once fleets of conquest had blocked out the sun, ships now traveled in peace. Not all problems were solved. Not all wounds were healed. The galaxy was still vast and complicated and sometimes dangerous. But it was better. Because one small species on one small world had learned to reflect instead of strike, had learned to build instead of destroy, had learned that true strength was not about power over others, but about the power to change. And that had made all the difference. Somewhere in the night sky, the spirit of the watched and smiled. Their children had succeeded where they had failed. The universe was finally learning to be better. And humanity, once alone and wondering, had found its place among the stars. Not as warriors, not as conquerors, but as teachers, as builders, as friends, and that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.